The Rock's performance. Brian,
let's do it.
The Rock's performance is the best part of it, but is also the most disappointing. Because again, you didn't even try to be anyone else.
Didn't even try. How does that feel?
You know, but he's entertaining. But again, the more and more I think about it, it's hard for me to give him that credit because it just reminds me of other performances. If you're a Rock fan, then this is the movie for you. But I'm a Rock fan, but it's not about The Rock for me. It's about Black Adam. I want to see these characters come to life. He didn't do that for me.
I'm actually a little surprised, even though I knew from the trailers what we were getting. But for someone who has been very vocal about saying this is a character that meant something to him on a personal level from when he read it as a kid, you know, and saw an anti-hero who was not Caucasian and still all powerful. And then for someone who's waited so long to make this movie, and it clearly has had time, you would think, to think about how he would represent this character on screen. I'm kind of confounded by the choices he made here. Like, I read a lot of reviews talking about how electrifying, how charismatic he. I don't think I think he's actually as restrained as you've ever seen him as a character.
That was Dwayne Johnson, not The Rock. If it would have been The Rock.
Exactly. I told you, it's the corporate. They needed the corporate champion in superhero and supervillain anti-hero form would have worked perfectly for this character. And but even if he didn't do that, here's what I don't understand. So if we're to believe the way that the story portrays Teth Adam, and the way the few scenes in Ancient Kahndaq show him, this is a character who went through enormous heartbreak, experiences enormous anger over kind of the death of his son, basically. Right up until the moment where he, seeks like brutal revenge on the king, and then is entombed as kind of too dangerous, too volatile to have the power. Why would that character come out of the tomb 5,000 years later with no emotion at all? That doesn't make any sense. Like, he calls it born from rage. But where was the rage? Like, he's not killing these soldiers because he's angry.
Yeah.
He's just killing them because he has a lot of powers and he doesn't really know the world that he's in. But this is a character that was governed by emotion. And if you wanted to make that the central thrust of what he was doing, like, give the character a temper, give the character a short fuse, have the character get angry. But like, he didn't do that, and the writing didn't ask him to do that. And I am just stunned that he went with this monotone for 2 hours. He never raised his voice above a whisper. I just don't understand it. But what he was going for, and I will let you opine on this, what he was going for was the Terminator from Terminators 2 through 6.
Yeah.
Please expound why you have brought up the Terminator a couple of times, and I can try to build on it because it's exactly right, in my view, as to what he was really trying to do here.
It's if you've seen Terminator 2, this is just the whack version, basically. You got a kid trying to show this dude how to talk, how to be this guy, how to say this, how to say that. And Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger never gets angry. I mean, he's emotionless. And that is what he did with this character. You could have told me that if I knew nothing of Black Adam and you were telling me that Black Adam is a robot that was built like a Mazo, quite honestly, there is no real charisma here.
Right? I couldn't believe the amount of reviews that were like, he's so charismatic in this movie. I'm like, I think he's dialing it way down from what he's capable of.
Who do you blame?
I don't know on that. It has to be him in the end because this is his character that he's always wanted to play. So I think the buck has to stop with him in the sense that if he read the script and he didn't like that the script was basically putting him into these one-line situations and these monotone situations, then he certainly had the power to change that. So you hit the Terminator 2 thing to me is so perfect because we always talk about the Arnold analogy and he clearly was going for it here. But, you know, similar to how Terminator 3, 4, 5, and 6 all missed the point of that aspect of Terminator 2, these folks from The Rock on down missed the point in this movie. Yeah. The point and what made the Cameron portrayal and Arnold's portrayal powerful. By the way, Arnold in that movie, that's acting. I don't care what anyone says. He performs in that movie. Yeah. But the point of that is to show that you have this programmed killing machine who is embedded with a learning component that's originally designed to make him a more efficient assassin. But when surrounded by the humanity of John in particular, it's able to basically evolve that machine into, as Sarah Connor said, of all the fathers who came and went, this is the only one who measured up. That's a powerful idea that Cameron was unleashing. And Arnold struck just the right balance of his one-liners are memorable without being goofy.
Yeah.
And if you look at the deleted scenes, there are some goofy scenes in there, like of him trying to smile. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So like they were smart enough to edit it down to what can we get away with to make Arnold lovable in as lovable a Terminator can be without losing the gravity of the character. And as Terminator went on, it became sillier and sillier, right? That's what each of the successive movies just leaned into the silliness and got away from what made the character great. And I think The Rock just looked at that and said, like, I just want that. That's my template. But he totally missed the value of that. Yeah. And quite honestly, it wasn't that applicable to this character. So, as I said, if this was going to be this rage-filled, vengeance-driven, you know, larger than life character, yes, at some point, if you want to bring it into balance, you would need a humanizing element. But that wasn't likely to be a light-hearted, snappy dialogue, one-liner type of character, which is what they went for. They went for an MCU type of exchange, right? So there's no way they could have stolen the catchphrase thing from Thor: Love and Thunder because these movies were in production at the same time. But we just saw this with Natalie Portman, right?
Exactly.
We just saw this and in a movie that was trying to be silly.
Yeah.
And then we see it here and they're trying to like be fun, but in a serious sort of way. And it just falls flat, man. Like it just doesn't work.
Brian, was there a moment where you were waiting for that sort of, I guess, memory of the tragedy that happened with his son to almost happen with this kid, to sort of spark a flare of anger from, I was waiting for something and it never happened. The
closest they got was in the scene with Sabak, right, where the boy kind of is injured remember Black Adam says, my lightning, he's not shot by the bullet, but Black Adam's lightning is what kind of hurts him.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. So the two moments where I thought we were maybe going to see it was, I thought, like when he comes out of the tomb and he comes out blazing. My first thought was, okay, I already know I'm in Man of Steel. So I kind of was looking for, like, they're going to just borrow the amount of cataclysmic damage that was done at the end of Man of Steel leading up to some kind of tragedy, something that gets his attention somehow. The other moment that I think he was trying to channel it, but like at that point it was too far gone, is one of the moments you like, which is he's kind of just like hovering, looking at the statue and like that's actually one of his better moments in the movie, where he's recalling what happened and the realization that the statue is his son and not him.
Yeah.
But he's been so flatline at this point for like an hour and a half that he can't cry. He can't grow angry. He's locked in at this point to this. He just has to stare at it and say what happened. And so those felt like missed opportunities for The Rock to kind of really give you an emotional range that would have, I think, really would have helped this character. Because as he said, if he says like it's Superman who kills, one of the obvious ways you can differentiate this character from Superman is his emotion, right? Superman learns to control and be calm and positive and up. And if this character was every bit the opposite, was volatile, a firecracker, completely unpredictable, that would have served him well. I just don't understand why they sat around the room and said, we want to just replicate the Terminator from 2, 3, 4, and 5 and like do that.
Here is where you use it doesn't matter. Here is where you use it.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Here's where you use it at its full strength to get a roaring reaction from the crowd.
My biggest thing with the performance as it goes, I don't know where it goes from here. That's the other thing I struggle with, is by making this choice, I think it makes it harder for him to do other things with the character. Like in a weird way, it's interesting. We'll talk about Henry Cavill in his own segment, but one of the things I defended about Man of Steel was that I thought that the brooding version of Clark Kent could evolve into something more had we stayed with just the Man of Steel franchise. And I would have been interested to see that. But this character, how does he endow it with real feeling and emotion now? Like, he's already played the card of 5,000 years worth of pent-up feeling. There's nothing he's going to experience in this world in 5 seconds that's going to top that.
Yeah.
So he basically is going to be this one-note character, it seems like, who is going to straddle the line between good and evil. And like, that's pretty boring. Like, you don't go very far with that.
Brian, this is why I say you have moments where you can, that moment where he's staring at that statue, you can just go back to his life, with his wife, with his kid. Things didn't have to be so sudden, but they turned it into freaking, what's that movie, The Dark Knight Rises. That's what they took that from. In terms of the way they told this story and revealed it at the end, which in the beginning I was like, yo, that's The Rock right there. What's he doing there? And they didn't show his face in the beginning. I was like, okay, let's see what this is going to turn out to be.
Right.
But this movie could have been saved, man, but they didn't choose to want to tell a good story. They just wanted to give you the hits.
Yeah, and I think in a weird way too, like as messed up as the script was, there was a way to naturally do what we're talking about here, like in the sense of if he was entombed for being out of control, I mean, effectively he could have come out of the tomb thinking his mission was incomplete. And you could, in that sense, he could have become almost like a Godzilla type of character where he's just like unleashed on the city of Kondak, which he's supposed to be the savior of. And instead he's hunting for Sabat. He's basically hunting for thinking that that guy's still out there, which it turns out he is. And like, you could have had like some of the moments we've always wanted for the Hulk, honestly, where it's like, you could have had like, hey, armed forces, forget the superheroes, military force, like some of the stuff that we kind of made fun of, they could have used that to like build his rage, to like build his anger and like build his damage. And then, you know, that could have led to the deaths of thousands of innocents. And maybe that's something where it's like, now you've created some stakes and you've created some like, okay, now I get why like the Justice Society and like Superman would be like, uh-oh, we got it. Now I understand like why you got to put this guy. And like, and then instead of him like flashing his eyebrow at Hawkman in the plane, if it's him just like out of control, just throwing this continuous tantrum, like I think that would have been more interesting. I'm not sure how I'd complete the arc. I certainly would need something more than the kid to save him, but I just think it would have been more dynamic of storytelling. And just, I can't see, do you want to see this performance in 3, 4, 5, 6 more films?
And that is the question that Warner Brothers is going to have to ask themselves.
Yeah.
We will see who runs what in the next few months.
It's the greatest irony to me, because it's like, we talk about, for as great for as successful as Batman has been to movie making, the struggle has always been the Batman character, right? You always get the criticism of like, Batman's the most boring character in his own movies because the range of the character once he becomes Batman doesn't really allow that. Now, I think we have cracked the code now. I think especially with the Reeves version, we've kind of solved that. But you had one of the most dynamic, charismatic dudes on the planet in your lead role, and somehow I left this movie feeling like you boxed him in to like the classic Batman trope of like, in his next movie, I'm relying on Superman, or I'm relying on his other lead to provide the emotion. And it's like, Dwayne Johnson, how is that possible?
It's tough to think about seeing another film and him having the same performance.
But how does the performance really change? Exactly. It's just,
I don't know.
So again, he's not. I agree with you. He's probably one of the all-in better parts of the movie. He certainly looks the part. He does some cool things, but it's a weird choice, man. And I just would, as I said, you asked me this before the movie came out, if I ever saw him in a screening, and I told you this was what was going to be my biggest disappointment. And I agree with you. This is it, like right here. I just don't get the choice. I don't get how he sat around for this long and was like, this is the lane I choose for this.
We can go open up so many can of worms in this, but The Rock has his situation the way he wants it, and that's good enough for him. And I know that there can be a great performance in him.
He needs a great director, though. It's not coming out of him unless he's willing to submit to being directed by someone who has it.
Yeah. That was category number 3, The Rock's performance.